Perhaps we'll kick things off. I'm not going to ask too many questions because I know that there'll be a load in the audience, so I'm going to let them fire away, but I will ask a couple of opening thoughts. First of all, we mentioned there the providing pathways for the best players, improving the participant experience. What challenges do you have in fulfilling those goals?
I'm Jeanette Jones, by the way. I actually had, before I came on the board, a long experience at grassroots football. I was the president of the Women's Only Association, which is, I think, the only one in Australia, women's only. I think the biggest challenge, as far as the elite pathway, is getting more kids on the park, especially from those under sixes upwards. It's interesting, I think that Emma actually talked about girls only mini roos, and I think that's a really, really big positive. I know Northwest Sydney Women had 78 girls only mini roos teams this year, which I think is unbelievable. They're girls playing against girls. You look at other associations, I don't think other associations have girls only mini roos. Most of them have mixed, I think.
We have the steps in place and the building blocks in place, which are about 2 years in at the moment, so we're starting to see it.
Yeah. It's very important. I think some girls love playing with boys. I think girls playing with boys, especially the more talented girls, really is very, very important. That there has to be both processes available. But getting the base of that pyramid wider, so that you get more kids funneling up to the top, is the one biggest fundamental I can see. Plus, you need grounds for those kids to play on, which is another issue.
Linda?
If we go on the feedback that we receive from club level, one of the hiccups that we have is the jump in age groups. So without the depth of players that we have in the male landscape of football, jumping 2 years causes issues. But at the moment, that's what we work with. We encourage a single age group every year, and sometimes we get it, and sometimes we miss. But definitely building it from an under 6 level up, whereas 10 years ago we were building it from an under 12 girls level up. So that's the change that we've made in trying to overcome that.
Chris?
I think the challenge, if I was to put the coaching hat on, is that you only have to look at a coaching course if it's a C licence or if it's a community course, just the amount of females that are actually there. We're running a C licence down at Cerone Park and we've got over 40 people and there's only 2 females that are on it. And those 2 females have come through a scholarship program that we've actually launched. So that just shows the equal spread is that we need to get to a stage where we see more females that go into the coaching space.
Just want to pick up on that because that's really interesting. Again, I relate a lot of my experiences in the women's game to my wife, Stephanie Brandt, who not only calls the W League games, but she's also very heavily involved with Hurlston Park Wanderers, which is a grassroots club in the inner west of Sydney. My stepdaughter plays, and one of the things she says to me is that, and I think she said a couple of days ago, that every single club that my stepdaughter has played against this year in their league, not one has had a female coach. There's a lot of female team managers. Is there a specific reason for that? Steph's theory is that, well, if you've got more than one child, you're often ferrying them around to different parts of the city, but we're obviously not encouraging enough female coaches, are we?
I think for some females it can be quite a daunting task to go onto a coaching course, particularly at the grassroots level. As we know, it is quite a male-heavy sport, and to go onto a coaching course if there's 20, 30 people, and you're the only female, or if you're the only third female, it can be quite an intimidating task for you.
Just hold that microphone a bit closer to you, Chris. Sorry, it doesn't always pick it up.
So it can be quite a daunting task. So I think if we can look to offer, as well as the female-only playing opportunities, if we can offer some female-only coaching courses as well, just to take that barrier away. I think it's great we're starting to get the role models, particularly at the high end level, to see someone like Heather, who's now going to be coaching in the league as well, to then hopefully that inspires more females to get into coaching. So that's the key to highlighting role models as well.
I think it's 22% of the participants in football are female players, 10% of referees, 10% of coaches. And I'm not sure how we're going to remedy that. I think there's been a lot of work done by New South Wales, by FFA, by local associations to try to encourage women to be coaches. Women also don't go to administrative processes. Women don't have voices and decision-making processes in a lot of associations, a lot of clubs, and dare I say, even at FFA. So I think there is room for a lot of improvement in women to be mentored, and I think that's very interesting what you said about the getting ex-Matildas to be involved in coaching. I think ex-NPL players who started in grassroots came up, going back to their clubs to put back into those clubs in the future. And I think there should be some sort of mentoring program that perhaps Football New South Wales, FFA need to look at much more seriously about trying to encourage the number of women, not just in playing, but also in coaching and also in the administration of the game.
Maybe one of the answers is sat between you. Linda, you're big in the activisation area within your association. 25 years you've been involved in it. When you started the Nepean Association, there were no junior girls teams, and the women's teams so few. You actually had to play in a combined competition with Blacktown.
We did. That competition was called Zone 5. I don't know if it's related to Area 22 or why they came up with the name Zone 5, but we were Zone 5, and that was literally a few teams from the Nepean region and a few teams from Blacktown, because we just didn't have enough women to form our neither association did. That was very quickly overcome. I think it took less than 5 years for us to be able to say, okay, we're fine, we can go on our own now, both associations. And now we run 6-7 divisions of women and right down to under 6 girls. So it has worked, and I think what I wanted to say in regard to the last question was, you just have to keep trying. You can't get to that point where you say, well, we tried that last year and it didn't work, so let's give it up. You know, if you're trying to work on gender inclusion or gender diversity and something didn't work, you just have to keep going back. Just have a look at it again and say, what didn't work this time, let's go back and try it again. It works eventually.
I'll tell you what is working. Manly United, which is in your association at the moment, Chris, not only champions of the men's game, just last weekend in the grand final at Leichhardt, but also the women's teams, and great success at junior level as well. So what's your secret? You're obviously doing a lot of things right in your part of Sydney.
I think what's been great is just to see like the unity across the men's and the women's platform, especially how we're looking to empower the junior girls and boys to actually be involved in the senior program as well. And Cerone, who's the TD for the female side, she started like a program this year where it was like a mentoring program. So we had the senior women's NPL team actually went down and coached the under-13 SAP, and they had like a buddy program, and that worked fantastically. And I think it showed when we had the grand final here that all of those SAP girls came. So it's just about trying to create a culture that we aren't just the boys and women's, we are a football club, and we are the whole family. So it's just trying to create that club culture.
Just a couple more questions from me, and then I'm going to throw it open to the floor. But Jeanette, as the FNSW representative, I know that facilities are always a challenge, particularly for girls and for women. I know that as a state federation, Football New South Wales takes this very seriously. Where are we at in terms of facilities for girls and women to play?
A work in progress.
Thought you might say that.
I think there has certainly been some improvements. I think in a lot of associations there is a dearth of fields full stop, not just for girls but for boys. I think most associations nowadays do actually give fairly even spread to girls and boys in their allocation of fields in their competitions amongst most associations.
We don't look at gender. We need to put a competition on.
I think there'd be very
girls
few.
are known as training.
I think there is, at association level, I think there is a very, very fair distribution of fields. I think more to the point is the actual lack of fields for a lot of associations. I think someone, Jeff Saw, brought up before about the shrinking amount of time that football gets to use fields in a lot of inner city associations. I know in the Ride Council you only get 5 months a year for football, and I think had to be out by the 23rd of August. You can't start till the first week of April. It's a really, really short season, and trying to get the growing number of players onto a shrinking number of fields in many, in the inner city is really difficult, especially with the number of high rise that's going in a lot of these areas. I think the problem is going to be exacerbated markedly over the next 10 to 15 years unless something radically is done.
And Linda, just a final one for you, just to broaden things out a little bit. I know you're heavily involved in programs for the Nepean referees group. A much maligned and often forgotten part of the game. We've got a couple of referees in attendance today that I've seen already. Where are we at with trying to get girls and women involved in refereeing as well?
We have a really strong female representation in our referees group, and I really wish I'd brought the figures with me. I can't remember exactly, and I know that there's a lot. We have just, at a recent board meeting, introduced a female football development officer specific to refereeing for our referees group, which we're very excited about, and it just, as far as refereeing goes, what we've found is the more female referees that are out there, they like attracts like. You know, we're seeing young girls that are seeing young girls out on the field, and they're saying, I want to do, she can do that, I can do that. It really helps that we had Sarah Ho come from our district, and she's been a wonderful champion. She comes back on a very regular basis to talk to our girls. She encourages them. They're excited to be there. We've got girls in the national talent pool for refereeing now, and in the elite pathways. So it's been something that's been a very strong and very deliberate strategic approach that we've taken, and it's working well.
And just on a broader level, Jeanette, maybe you're the best person to answer this. I know that getting referees involved in the game of football in general, having spoken to Ben Wilson, the head of referees at the FFA, is very, very difficult. They tend to give the game away when they get to 16, in part due to the abuse that is prevalent on the playing fields right around the country. How do we stop that? Do you implement a respect policy, or do you throw people out of the game? It's a tricky one, isn't it?
It's not just the 16, it's not just the abuse of referees that makes them drop off. Players drop off at 16 as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's referees and players both drop off at that 16, 17-year age group, male and female. It's interesting, I think there was a survey done, and actually abuse wasn't the main reason, it was actually administration difficulties that made a lot of referees drop out. Abuse is still a problem. A lot of associations have quiet days. Respect is so important. It's really up to associations and clubs within associations to ensure that those clubs do respect referees. Everyone whinges at club level if you don't get a referee, and then you hear them abusing on the sideline, and you think, get real people, you can't have it both ways. And I think Linda's got a solution too. Bit radical.
Go on, Linda.
It's about fencing off parents, really. You want to talk about one of the biggest...
We're going to have segregation on the playing field.
Adversaries to our game are the helicopter parents. So, if we can find a way to corral them in some other area of the suburb while their kids play, we'll solve a lot of problems.
I love it. So we're going to have to bring in stewards as well.
A little bit radical, and I'm not very popular when I talk about it.
Okay. Questions, please. Yes.
I have a question. It's mostly for Linda and Chris, but is there anything that particularly Football New South Wales and FFA could be doing more of to support associations and clubs, in your view? Is there anything that's not happening right now?
I would offer one suggestion. I've probably got 1,000 suggestions, but on the spot, one suggestion, and that is Female Football Week. We love Female Football Week. We love it. We embrace it. But it's too late. It's or too. If we're to use Female Football Week as a tool to recruit players into the game, we can't be having it in March and April because we have clubs that are nominating their teams. So I think, and to be fair, Football New South Wales has done a really excellent job in the last 4 or 5 years in starting to listen to associations about our timelines and about the need for us to work together with those timelines. It's no good saying this is what suits us if the key objective of that project is to increase participation. You can't increase participation in April or May because the team formation is finished and done, and the competition's underway. So if that would be one thing that I would ask both organisations to continue to listen to.
I think just as well to understand that it isn't going to be like a one-size-fits-all in terms of from just from the background from when I was over in Perth, is that it's always going to be different from area to area, and that doesn't matter if it's actually like the men fed or if it's the associations here, is that we have to understand what each association needs and what's actually going to improve them. So just to understand that we aren't going to have that one-size-fits-all approach. We can have that as a key approach, but we might have to implement it in different ways in different areas across the associations and federations.
And one other thing is to remember that Football New South Wales is a metro, that we have to look after our branches in our country, which have quite different needs to metros.
We talk about the benefits of the Women's World Cup in 2023, but tomorrow we see a microcosm of that. And so can you just explain and outline the excitement, the aura, the atmosphere that's happening in Nepean, and what's regarding the Matilda station and what it's likely to result in going forward for next year and so on?
So initially, if you would talk to anyone in Penrith, they will tell you that they've invented women's football. That's the level of pride that they're feeling at the moment, and you know, we just let them have their moment because they're so very excited about the Matildas coming. And anyone that came to the launch last night would have seen those 30 or 40 little girls absolutely scrambling. And if you can just take that up to 2,400 and 4,000 something of our female players, that's basically the buzz. But it doesn't restrict itself to the females. The men in the area are excited because it's a national team. So you have a national team play in your backyard, and it's like Christmas. Everyone loves it, and everyone embraces it. They want to be a part of it. They're excited. But going forward, it's reaching out to other people that aren't involved in our sport. They're the ones that, you know, they sit up and take note when it's a national team or when it's an A-League team or a W-League team. So they're kind of tickled by celebrity, and they come in after something like that too. So yeah, it's a great thing for the district, a great thing for women in general.
A comment, if I can start, and I'd ask for an opinion from the whole panel, and this is the question of female only versus all of this mixed gender. And I go back, I'm like Jeanette, come from a female only association, and I've been a member of very large male-female football clubs for a long time. I go back to the 1980s, and we ran at our club a women's coaching course run by a former Matilda for girls and women only. We had 15, 20 do that course in a very safe environment. I now struggle to get one or two of our girls to rock up to an association where they're doing a mixed course. For that, it's almost an intimidation factor. I'll be one of two out of 30 or whatever. In the 80s, it was all, I forget what they called it, but it was really pushing the gender balance in female only. Now it's mainstream, and it's all good to be part of mainstream, but if we don't get the girls, we need to get more female only coaching, refereeing courses, all of those things to encourage women in a safe environment socially to go to those.
I believe you do. When I did my first coaching course, it was in the early 90s, and I was the only girl in the group, and it was, you know, full of kick it to the girl, let the girl have a go. You know, it was fine. I got broad shoulders and I took it in good grace. But we do run female only coaching clinics. We do run female only, well, we try and get to a female only referees course once a year, and we usually do it. And we just have to accept that sometimes there might only be 9 people as opposed to 39, but that's okay. That's 9 people that needed that environment to start them off and to get that confidence one-on-one. And then from there, they're off and running, they're okay. But you know, sometimes you just need to make that little extra effort, you know, take the pay cut, take the, you know, this is going to cost us money to run it rather than break even, and do that for those that have to overcome that barrier. And sometimes it's just that one little hurdle that they need to overcome in not feeling like they're the only girl in the room, and it does pay off. We believe it pays off. It's a little bit harder to do. It's easy to do at grassroots. The grassroots course, we could run, 6 of those a year for female only, and we wouldn't have an issue with it. But once you start getting up to the higher courses, they're harder to fill.
I think that's as well. If the associations can combine to work together as well. So if you've got like a neighbouring area to run like a female only C license together, and then it's 5 coaches from this association, 5 coaches from this association. So again, it goes down to all of us working together to actually try to grow the women's game. So.
I would actually suggest that you don't actually have only women's only courses, but you actually have courses for coaches of women. I think any guy that's come from coaching a man's side to coaching a woman's side is in for a serious culture shock. And I think they really do need to have coaches of women's football, and that perhaps could open up some of the applicant numbers.
We actually had a coaches of female teams course last year, and we came up a little with some opposition, and the opposition came from the females. But we had to kind of explain to them that these are men that are championing females teams. Their heart's in the right place. They're here for the right reasons, and they want to understand the tiny differences or the tiny nuances in coaching a female team as opposed to coaching a male team, and they were allowed to come.
When you have a coach a man's side, you spend your whole time saying you're not as good as you think you are, you're not as good as you think you are. With a woman who say, no, you're better than you think you are, you're better than you think you are. And there's a big difference.
If Australia wants to win 2023 Women's World Cup, what would you as a club or a member federation do to maximise benefit of hosting that? What activities would you do?
I'd try to get myself on whatever panel, board, group, whatever I could. That would be my first thing to get our association then engaged through. You need a key person to deliver it back, and I think that's important.
Publicity. I think you've got to drive it as much as possible once that becomes, if we do get it. I think getting wherever the venues are going to be, getting panels, as you said, in those areas to really push and drive as much as possible. That wouldn't just be, that'd be FFA, obviously, it'd be the member federation, it'd be the local associations, the local clubs. You've got to go right down to the very bottom. As I said, you've got to get these kids, these little tiny kids involved. Seeing the young kids, as you said, the youngsters last night. I know at grand final day, Casey Dumont came down to do some handing out trophies at North West Sydney grand final day. I think she was there for an hour and a half afterwards signing posters. That's the sort of stuff you want. You want kids just to be down there and seeing their role models and getting female role models is so important for women.
I also think as well that just hopefully the bid is in, and then like we do actually get it, but that's then going to give girls that are now sort of 14, 15, 16, 4 or 5 years to get really excited, really get inspired about trying to get into the game. And obviously every single player isn't actually going to go on to play for us, but it's going to hopefully grow the game in terms of that they've now got something to aim for and something to really strive for in terms of their playing. And just as well, hopefully, as all of us have said, we're a very proud sporting nation. It doesn't matter if it's all of the codes. So it'll actually bring people from outside of the tent into the tent because they actually want to support the green and gold.
I think on the strength of what we heard this morning, Linda, John Fane will ensure that Penrith and Nepean is front and centre of the World Cup. Don't worry. Last question before we break for lunch, please.
Just going back onto Sarah's point in terms of how FFA and Football New South Wales can help. We've been talking about how we attract more girls into the sport, and don't get me wrong, we need to. But I guess my more concern for me is how we keep girls in football. Our turnover rate is quite high. So in terms of as associations and as clubs, how can FFA and Football New South Wales help us improve the football experience for girls?
I think if you're looking at young girls, I think a lot of girls, my granddaughter plays mini roos. This is her second year, just finished her second year. In the first year there were 3 girls, including her in her team. This year she was the only one left, and those girls left, and they were playing in a mixed competition. And they weren't the best players by a long shot in the team. and I think they were just overwhelmed. And I think there's got to be that ability to play for all. So you've got the talented players who will probably play in boys' side, and then perhaps girls who maybe take a bit longer to develop, who want a bit more nurturing before they go on. I think getting them involved at the age of 6 is really important. I think if you wait until they're 8 or 9 or 10, AFL will snaffle them. So I think you've got to get in at 6. Yeah. I think it's just encouragement, giving them options, and as many options as possible.
I think too, if when you do lose them, I think an exit survey, a well-structured exit survey, that's perhaps coming from a national body or even the state body, and then sharing those results back with associations, and even if we can drill that down to clubs, and if we can go back and let a club know, that you lost this many. In general, this many players, and there's many reasons why, but this many female players, these were the reasons where they didn't feel that the sport was for them. And then concentrate on the things that we can change from that point. So if it was something specific to their gender that we can help with, then we can change, or if it was along the lines of disability, if it's something specific to the disability that we can address and change, then we do that. If it's just I didn't like it, we just have to accept that they just didn't like it. But if we can say, why didn't you like it, and take that question to the next level and understand why they didn't like it, and that was because all the boys picked on me, then that opens up a can of worms that we can possibly address.
When I was registrar 20 years ago, we used to have a 30% turnover of players and referees. I don't think that figure's actually changed a huge amount, and so I think maybe the exit surveys to find why people are leaving is really.
I think on the point of the exit survey, on the point of the exit survey, that's a good thing, but they've already left the game. So in terms of, with that information from the exit survey, could Football New South Wales facilitate, I guess, workshops and meetings where we share our initiatives and our ideas and what's working in the girls' space? So therefore, we can hopefully stop losing girls because we're actually collaborative and actually sharing ideas that actually are working at grassroots level.
I think idea sharing is key. I think education is key. If we're all just amassing the knowledge and then keeping it to ourselves, then it might make us really great, but it won't make the game really great. It won't make the region or the team or the club or the sport really great. So yeah, we need to share it. We need to be collaborative, and I think Football New South Wales do a fairly good job of being collaborative and being inclusive as far as associations. I'm not speaking from club level, from representative level. I'm concerned with the grassroots players only, and the superstars have got a whole plethora of people to look after them. I look after average, so that's where I come from.
Okay, quick final point because we must break for lunch.
Sorry, I don't want to be that person that wants to be back for lunch, but I'll be quick. It was mentioned the importance of establishing mentoring programs for the Matildas or NPL players to be embedded in decision making and governance of associations. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what do you think about having young people in advisory positions, if that's young women, young men, but representative and reflective of society at large, so disabled, refugees, Indigenous, to be involved in the decision-making processes of associations, and that's within coaching, playing, administration and refereeing as well. Because I guess if you look at council models that have youth advisory groups as well, and they're engaged in decisions, and research shows that when young people are involved, there are sustainable outcomes, not just in playing and participation, but sustainable outcomes for society at large. So, representatives of associations, what would your thoughts be on that?
I think that's a brilliant idea. I think one of the challenges will be I think the barrier will exist with the older entrenched people that are in the administration of getting them to just open up and listen. So whether that's done in a forum, whether that's done as an honorary position, an honorary directorship on the board, that we can have this person coming in. But I think it's important, if that's going to be a young person that is representative of, that then they also have the road, that people can come to them and talk to them and say, can you talk to them and tell them this? Because you don't want that one person to it just be their opinion and nobody else's opinion.
Well, yeah, or a
So,
committee or
yeah.
just like-
So I think it's a great idea. I wish I brought a notebook up here because I've heard so many good ideas since I've been here.
And then whose responsibility would it be to? So yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, trying to get any volunteers, I would have thought most associations would be saying yes please, yes please. One of the biggest issues is that they can't get people, young people, to be involved a lot. So I think, you know, allowing that would be, most associations would say, yep, we'll have some more volunteers, thank you very much, to help advise and work out what the next steps are.
Would that be something the association drives or FFA, New South Wales, or council?
I think it's, if the association heard that great idea and wrote it down in her book as soon as she got off the stage, then the association would drive that. Because, you know, oftentimes, that doesn't mean that the state or the national body shouldn't get on board, but it takes a lot longer for the wheels to get in motion. The further up the ladder you go, the slower the wheel turns. So, you know, if we can hit that at a grassroots level and, you know, Manly can take it back to the have, because he's got all the good ideas so far today. So, you know, if you haven't already got the idea in place, just to be open to it, float it to the directors is a, you know, the worst they can say is no. And, you know, I'm one of those people you can say no to about 5 times before I take no as the answer. So you just got to rephrase it and repackage it and put it out there again. But I think it's a great idea.
Chris, anything to add?
I think just if I was to wear like the coaching hat, I think some of the best coaches that I've sort of worked with, if it's in terms of course, are actually some of the younger coaches because they are that blank canvas. So I think the more we can empower under 16s, under 18s to get involved at their club level, because clubs across the grassroots level, it's always a challenge to find the coaches, and we always seem to be fighting for coaches when there's only 2 weeks to go before the season. But you've got a great task force of people there in the under 16s and under 18s, and if we can factor in that they get half price fees in terms of like registration fees, or there's some incentive for them to get into it, because I think there's a great task force of coaches to actually get involved, and as well the highlight from the system that we had in terms of the NPL girls actually going back to coach like the SAP girls is that they are those fantastic sort of role models. Anytime we have like a W League player come out, it's always great to see the girls' faces to see it, because it's someone who they can see at the weekend, hopefully see on through to our TV, and then they can actually be the role models.
Or Fox Sports. I think we're going to have to leave it there because we need to break for lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Jeanette.